Today we are out here planting our onions. Well, Jose's doing some other stuff, but I'm getting the onions in the ground. I just wanted to talk briefly. We decided to do our onions a little bit differently this year. It's beautiful because it is blooming, which is amazing. The problem up here is you don't want your cherry tree or any of your trees to bloom this early. And we thought about waiting till tomorrow, but sometimes on the farm, it's nicer to have things done than it is to go to bed early.
Yeah. I tried to play Mario Kart. No?
Could you just plant some trees, please?
Happy Thursday. Thursday?
Thursday? Happy Thursday the 11th? Oh, Thirsty Thursday. You're supposed to be drinking a beer when you say that. All right, so today we are out here planting our onions. Well, Jose's doing some other stuff, but I'm getting the onions in the ground. I just wanted to talk briefly. We decided to do our onions a little bit differently this year. We did them in soil blocks.
Yeah.
Because it takes so long when you do them in flats, and I'm definitely not the fastest planter in the world, and the onions would get me every year. So we're doing these soil blocks. I did not trim the tops. I left them. I've been doing a lot of reading. You know, a lot of people say to trim the tops, and I read absolutely don't trim the tops, that you want the tops on there. So today I have my friend Betsy helping out. So her and I are working the beds, but literally this morning, in just a couple of hours, we're almost done with the third bed of onions. And here on the farm, we plant 5 total beds of bulbing onions. So 3 of our storage onions, 2 yellow varieties and a red variety. And then we do a bunch of different specialty onions and some shallots in the other 2 beds. And then of course we do 2 full beds of green onions.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of onions here.
That's good. I like onion.
Yeah. Okay, so we should probably get back to work.
Okay, go back.
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
Drinking water.
You're drinking some water. All right. Jose's on break. Okay, so I just want to talk real quick about planting onions. So we start our onions mid-March. We're zone 5A. So March 20th is the day we started our onions. And now we're putting them in the ground. Today is May 10th, so about 8 weeks, pretty close. Maybe a little shy of that. And now they're in soil blocks ready to go in the ground. So in our garden beds, we do the standard market garden bed, which is 30 inches by 100 feet. And we do 3 rows, and we plant groupings of about 3 onions every 9 inches. And then I offset the center row from the other row. So I'll show you as we plant here. Now usually for onions you want a very weed-free bed. This bed, we only used a partial bed because the garlic's down on the other end. It's pretty weedy, but onions are a pain in the butt to weed because they don't shade out the weeds, so you get a lot of weeds, whereas some crops like our Brussels, we weed them once and the rest of the season we don't have to worry about them. So onions are a pain in the butt. But anyway, you can see here I mark the center row every 9 inches, and then for the 2 outer rows we put a hole right in between those 2 holes. It makes it real easy. I only then have to measure 1 row. You could use a dibbler or something else. We don't do that. So then I just start getting my soil blocks out. Now these onions, my chicken knocked on the ground, so they're a little stunted. But then I just drop a soil block into each hole. And I try to be as quick as possible, but that's not always, doesn't always work, especially when there's a lot of weeds. Then once I do that, I don't bury the onions very deep, but I don't like the soil block to be showing. I like to cover the whole soil block. So I just cover it deep enough to really cover the soil block. And I think this year we may use some straw on the beds. I haven't decided yet, to try to keep the weeds down a little bit. But anyway, that's onions. It's pretty simple. You know, onions are a one and done. We put them in the bed once and just let them go, and then we harvest sometime in July or early August. So that they take the, you know, most of the season up here. This year we planted several varieties. These are just the last of them. These ones here are Sierra Blancas, which are one of my personal favorites, but they don't last for the winter, so they have to be sold fresh at market. Truthfully though, I'm very happy with the soil blocks. I don't think if we planted a whole bunch more though, it would be very efficient just because of how much room they take in the soil blocks. But you know, another thing I've heard people do is using the paper pot transplanter. That's how we do our green onions, and we have pretty good success with it. So we might try a bed with the paper pot next year just to see how it goes. But last year we had bad luck with our onions, so we didn't want to screw it up again this year. Good morning.
Good morning.
Today is May
13.
Yes, and it is a very exciting day today. We are putting the fruit trees in the ground.
Yeah.
They have been, some of the cherries have been in the basement for a few months, and so it's time to get them in the ground.
Yeah, it's time.
It's very exciting. So the first thing we're going to go around and do is mark all the spots where we're going to put trees. And then Jose's going to go around with the skid loader and our auger. We use a 24-inch auger for the trees. We make a really big hole. It makes it a lot easier. Make it a little deeper. We put some compost down in the hole. Yeah, it's just an easy process when you have an auger. If you're digging by hand, it's a whole nother ball game. But we're putting almost 60 in the ground today, so we don't have time to dig by hand.
Yeah, thanks Gary for letting us use your...
Yeah, thanks Dad. So I am going to go around and mark all of these holes for Jose, and we're going to decide where each tree is going to go. The other thing we're doing today is burying one of our fur babies. We had to put down our ginger man, who was kind of our farm greeter. So we are going to put him up by the end of the driveway where he always sat and waited for people to show up.
Yeah.
So he's going to get buried today. So those are the activities that are happening today. It's a beautiful day. We have been very busy. We have been wanting to make an update video. We just have not had time to do a farm update and show everybody around. But hopefully in the next few days we'll get that done. All right, Jose, you ready to mark some holes?
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right, let's go.
Really quick stop. What is this?
Oh, this is our apricot here. The problem, it's beautiful because it is blooming, which is amazing. The problem up here is you don't want your cherry tree or any of your trees to bloom this early because we're expecting frost probably in the next week. Our last frost date is usually May 29th. That's the average. So although I love that it has blooms on it,
yeah, it's beautiful.
It's too early. Prints out here, so maybe I'll just, yeah, these transparent will be good. So one here, maybe, and one out here. Yeah. This way you think? This is an old apple tree that was on the property that we saved We don't eat the apples from that. Again, it's at the end of our leach field. And then this is a maple tree. We're a little worried about it because the birds have really loved it, meaning the woodpeckers. They've put quite a few holes in it. So we don't know if it will survive, but we saved those two trees when we dug out all of our trees. This is our setup for tree planting day, right? So what do we have in the bucket?
Our compost.
Yeah, this is compost we made right here on the farm. So this is going to go in the holes with the trees. And this compost is 2 years old, so it's plenty broken down. And we don't put a lot of it, just enough to, you know, enrich the soil a little bit. Then we pull this garden cart that we love with our trees on it. And we only bring out the trees that we're going to plant in about an hour at a time. Just because you don't want them to heat up too much and you don't want the roots to dry out as you're doing it. So we really, because we want to make sure our trees, you know, they're fairly expensive, survive as well as possible. We take pretty good care of them as we're planting them. So they go in this cart. And then back here we haul this trailer and we put our mulch in here. This is just a cedar mulch. So we carry that with us. And then we fill this tank with water because we don't have, you know, water on the far outsides of the property. We don't water our trees at all throughout the year, which may be bad, but
maybe one time in a year.
Yeah, we don't really have access, but we have extremely high water table, so the soil stays pretty wet deep a lot of the year. So we don't have we've never lost any trees anyway to being dry. Now we've never had a drought yet, and so in that case we probably would have to water the trees. We carry some buckets to make sure we can haul water, because this thing, sometimes we have it parked on a hill below there, so we just fill this. Are we leaking? Do we have a hole in it? Oh, it's the hose. Okay. Okay, and then of course some shovels so we can dig out the holes and get them ready. So that's everything we bring for the trees.
I tried to play Mario Kart. No?
Could you just plant some trees, please?
Oh, okay.
So this first hole, we dug it extra deep, and we're putting Ginger Man in there. He's our baby that we lost, and this is a very special place right here where you can keep an eye on all the traffic and everybody coming and going. Okay, so a little bit about our process while we're planting trees. So these trees come bare root like this. We always water the roots really good before we put them in the ground, make sure they're real moist. And then you want to plant the tree just below where the graft was. So this is the graft on this tree right here. So we're going to try to plant it right here above the root ball. So Jose starts by putting a little compost in, and then we usually dump a little bit of water in.
Soil.
Yep, a little bit of soil on top of the compost. We don't really want the roots touching the compost.
Yeah.
But I think now it's not going to be deep enough, Jose.
Yeah.
Oh no, I think maybe it's perfect. And we're just going to put just a little bit of water in. Because of all the snow we've had this year, we have a lot of water in the ground, so we don't really need that much.
No, okay.
Yeah, go ahead. All right, then we put a little more compost in, and then now we're going to finish adding dirt. Then we're going to press that dirt down, not real hard, but a little bit with our foot. We're not going to jam that tree in there, but we don't want it shifting too much. And then also you want to just keep monitoring your tree to make sure it's straight up and down. We have a few of them. I'm not going to take responsibility for it, but it's probably my fault that are not straight. This one we did really perfect. So I would say up to this point we've planted about 40 to 50 bare root apple trees here on the property, and we have not yet lost a single apple tree.
No.
So I would say our luck with apple trees is pretty good. We've lost a plum and an apricot and lots of walnuts, but yet to lose any apples. Okay, so then we finish it off by adding a pretty good layer of compost on top to make sure those nutrients soak down into the ground. And then we're going to put mulch. And then we'll water, and that is how we plant trees here. And like I said, so far we've had pretty good luck. This area though is really good for apple trees. There are apple trees everywhere.
I think we have a wild apple.
Yeah, lots of random apple trees. We just planted 4 apple trees out here in this lower orchard. And I believe that'll actually finish out this orchard. We probably won't do any more trees down here. I think we have room for maybe one more here, but
yeah,
you know, sometimes it's good to have space for seats and chairs, or you know, if you want to come out here and relax, put a bench. So yeah, so this apple orchard is done, and I would say there's maybe 30 trees out here. Not sure exactly how many. I'd say 10 varieties. So lots of variety out here. All right, are you ready to move on to the tart cherries?
I'm ready for lunch.
Okay, lunch first, then tart cherries. Or we can also do the pears, Jose.
Pears? I don't know.
Nice. Jose, which trees are we doing now?
Pears.
We're doing some pear. We got 6 pears to put in the ground. So this morning we did 7 apples. Now we're going to do 6 pears. After that will be tart cherries, then sweet cherries. All right, let's go. Yeah, keep working. Come on, Jose, back to work. So we're on the last 16 trees. It's windy, it's 6 o'clock, it's getting late, and we want to just get these done. We thought about waiting till tomorrow, but sometimes on the farm it's nicer to have things done than it is to go to bed early.
Yeah.
So we're going to finish getting this done. We're going to do something interesting in this hole right here though. I read in a orchard book, if you have trees that need to be together to pollinate, to plant multiple in one hole.
Wow.
So we're going to try putting the 4 different sweet cherries that we bought into this hole and see what happens. It'll be an interesting experiment.
Yeah, it will be. We'll see there in 5 years.
Yeah, in 5 years we'll know if it turns out or not. So we were a little disappointed. The roots were a little wet in the basement, so we're hoping it doesn't create a problem.
I don't think so, but
yeah, you never know.
yeah.
Okay, so this is kind of a fun experiment. Who knows? I like trying some different things. We'll just see what happens. I guess with how many trees we've planted, it doesn't really matter.